Hi, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Another day for me to make the libs mad. People are mad at me again today. No shock there. Hi, welcome to Black Tea News. This is your host, Christina Barr. And today we're going to be talking about just the COVID madness. The governor of New York said some super creepy COVID mandate stuff that I think you should be aware of. It's kind of a cult, it seems like. It's getting really concerning. So I'm going to play a couple of clips from her. We're going to talk about this budget bill that they're trying to pass. Biden is saying that 3.5 trillion, it's not going to cost anything. 3.5 trillion is not going to cost us anything. They're going to say it's going to pay for itself and all this other kind of garbage. It's not true. They're saying the real cost is zero, and that's the talking points. That's the talking points they're putting on the shows. That's the talking points that all the Democrats are starting to parrot. And their sycophants and stuff. They're saying it's going to cost zero, which obviously that's not true. And there's an article, an opinion piece by the Wall Street Journal that said that it's actually going to look like it's going to be 5 trillion or 5.5 trillion because they do just kind of sneaky things that they do. They put in stuff that they think will sunset out that will never sunset out once you pretty much put in some kind of program that gives people money. People are always going to want that money, and even if you can't afford it, people. One side will scream, which mostly likely is going to be Democrats, and say, oh, if you don't renew this, you're going to be raising taxes on people in the middle class, and people usually relent and vote for that stuff. So it's important to not let that we can't afford it. We've spent so much money already. It's getting extreme. It's getting out of hand. So we got to stop it. And then there's also some other crazy stuff in here that we're going to address. So before we hop into it, I do want to thank the Brighter Michigan PAC for being a sponsor. Thank you for letting me use the studio, as always. They don't care if I trigger you. I don't care if I trigger you. You can go somewhere else. There's no one to complain to. It doesn't work like that. I'm just using the space and appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. If you guys have not seen that Super Bass parody that I did, please look at that. Please share that. That was a lot of fun to make, and I was able to make it because of Brighter Michigan PAC, at least using this space. I didn't pay for it or anything like that, but I was grateful to use the space. So please visit blacktnews.com to check out content that I have on the website. If you want to look at different articles that I've written, stuff that you can share, you guys can check out different merchandise that I have. I got my goat hoodies and shirts, and got those in different colors. I got Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirts, Trump stuff. I'm not the victim you're looking for. I got some new stuff coming. I got some books. Slay Your Fear, I totally wrote that because of the pandemic, which people need to hear something like this or read something like this, because they told us a lot of lies, and people are still concerned, so nervous about this stuff, so hyper afraid, and to the point where they're just lambs to the slaughter. They can do anything they want to these people because they are so afraid. So I had the idea on May the 4th last year, because fear is a path to the dark side. So I went ahead and I wrote that book, and I wish more people would adhere to it, because we're not supposed to just live too afraid to live. We've been too afraid to live this whole entire time. Well, people who have made us too afraid to live go out and live their lives. Obama partying up with the DJ maskless at his birthday party. The celebrities, they go out to the Met Galas, and people who are public officials, they've traveled, they've gone to rallies and protests and other things, whether they are masked or not masked, in some cases not masked. Gavin Newsom, French Laundry. So these people who want you to be afraid and want you to have to shut in and obey their laws and their rules, they just get away with murder. And that's only figurative for some people. I mean, when it comes to Andrew Cuomo, he actually did get away with murder. I guess only sort of, because he did resign, but that was over sexual assault. But we know they really probably didn't want him to be an embarrassment with the nursing home situation, which the new governor, said she'd be transparent and reveal that data. But Katie Holcomb has not yet done that. But we will see. We are waiting still to see all that. And we're waiting to see some more data come out in Michigan and other places about what they did and how bad the numbers really were. But perhaps we'll never truly know. Perhaps we'll never really know. Other stuff we got with the Black Tea News logo, got the Constitution's Glorious Liberty document, and I love the You Are Not That Special shirts and mugs. So please check out stuff I have on the website. And if you really do appreciate what we do here at Black Tea News, consider going to the website and leaving a donation there. I have a lot of plans with Black Tea News that I would like to expand as fast as possible. And if you enjoy the show and you want to go the extra mile, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and leave a gift. Thank you guys for everyone who shares. When I was on Mac and I saw a lot of people who really liked, for the Michigan Republican Leadership Conference, there's a lot of people who really enjoyed the show. I go to different events and people are telling me they really appreciate it, and other people are sharing it, and my sisters are coworkers and people are telling me that they're watching it and telling other people. I really appreciate that, and keep doing it. Keep doing it. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being part of the conversation. So I think I maybe have showed this before, but I wanted to talk about COVID again. I did share this on my social media earlier today, but this is the funny meme of the day. When you got the people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated, so it's a new sort of segregation we have going on. And I had a conversation with my friend who was on the other day, it was Monday, and I asked the question, I'm like, do we think that we're going to get to a point where they realize that they're pushing it too far with the COVID vaccines, because the ethnicity that has the least vaccinations would be the black population. So in New York, there's a lot of black people who cannot go into restaurants and so on. They've instituted these mandates. And now we have a lot of people who are being fired. In New York, you have, well, I guess all over the place it's starting to happen, but you have people who are retiring from the military. You have people who are losing their jobs in different medical industries. I have so many people that I've seen on TikTok and other places talk about how they are losing their jobs and they're between a rock and a hard place. There's someone who I follow who has had so many different medical issues and problems, and they will not give her any sort of exemption, because they'll only accept exemptions if you are like allergic to the stuff. Even though she's afraid that she could have a stroke or blood clot or something, like because of her medical history, and they don't care. And so her one place is going to get rid of her, and there's another place that she's working at, been kind of working on and off, and there's a job opportunity there, but they're not going to really give her that position if she doesn't get vaccinated. So she's really considering it, but she's very concerned about her health and what could potentially happen. And I feel for her. And there was someone else who I was talking to, and they said their stepdad had a stroke. And I was like, oh my God, after they took the second dose. And I said, are they okay? And she said, he's learned to walk again. He's still working with a speech therapist. I'm like, that is crazy. And I said, can you get anything? Like, I know you can't sue Pfizer or whatever company from the vaccine that they took it. I'm like, and you can get like medical, you'd have to, like, the government has a fund, and you have to call and so on. And it's very hard to get any money from vaccine harm. And she said the doctors won't admit, they make it seem like it's vague or unclear of the reason why it happened. So when people say, like, they don't know if, how many numbers there are out there has been harm, there's some people who's just probably not reporting it, and they make it seem super vague. So I'm really concerned, and I feel for a lot of people who are really in this hard spot of they don't know if they're going to eat or if they're going to relent and take it. Now, I understand people who I don't care either way, other than, like, you make your own decision, your own choice. But I hate that we have this force going on, and the people say, well, it's not really force because you can decide between having your job or getting it. That's not force, and it's crazy. It's guys, it's crazy. These are the same people pushing these mandates who thought it was racist to show your ID to vote. Something that everyone already has an ID. Something that the majority of people want people to show when they go vote to just prove who they are. They're like, it's racist. How is it racist? It's racist. You think that's racist. It is racist that you think that's racist. But they made a big stink about it. Yet, when you go into a restaurant now and you have to show your proof of vaccination, and I think you need an ID too in New York. So it's pretty wild. Pretty wild. But they thought that was too much, saying show your ID when you vote, when you participate in a national election. That is too much. It is too much to photocopy your ID and mail in it. If that is all entirely too much for Americans. But it's not forced when we say you can't keep your job if you don't get vaccinated. They don't think that's overreach. That's absurd. That's insane. That is crazy. That is absolutely bonkers. So, that's sweet. That's sweet. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. And yes, I am from Michigan. Yes, I am from Michigan. If you didn't watch yesterday's show about the ballot initiative, from what I saw this morning, it got approved. There's a group that is trying to push the national popular vote. And they say they don't want to abolish the Electoral College, but their goal is pretty much the same. They want, like the state of Michigan, to put on the ballot that people will vote, that instead of the voices of Michiganders being heard when we have a national election for president, that we will surrender that power to whatever the national popular vote is. That's what they want to do. So, they say it's bipartisan. The former Democrat chair is on it, and a former Michigan Republican Party chair is a part of it. And I explained why. Long story short, you can go watch yesterday's show. I made a little video that I'm going to edit and put it up so people can share that one too. He was on Laura Ingram's show some time ago, and he complained that all the election, like 95% of the money is spent in like 10 different states. Ding, 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 ding. That's the reason why. Someone like him. He's getting his checks cut from this group, which is funded by the children of George Soros and other people who are globalists, big libs and stuff. But someone like him, he's doing it for the money. Doing it for the money. A lot of consultants will have to pour more money into elections. And you won't have to spend in Wisconsin and different places. You can spend in California, New York. Why should 10 states get 95% of the money? He brought it up. He brought it up. He brought it up. Oh, thank you so much. Love it. If you haven't seen my Super Bass parody, you got to check it out. You got to check it out. I worked really hard on it to pump it out, and go check it out. It's just really good, I think. I'm biased. I am, but people have told me it's really good quality. So let's get on with some of the stories of the day. I want to talk about this crazy governor. First of all, do you guys remember this?
I don't think you'll ever see a mandating of vaccine, particularly for the general public. You cannot force someone to take a vaccine.
Oh yeah, that was a lie, wasn't it? That was a lie. That was such a lie. So now we are, of course, we're at the point where they've made OSHA restrictions, and they're saying if your company has more than 100 employees, I'd hate to be the 100th employee, by the way, you're fired, then they're going to mandate the vaccines, and that you have to make your people get it, or they have to like test, the unvaccinated have to test every week. And there's a lot that doesn't make sense other than the fact that they just want to force you to do it. And I don't know all the reasons why they really want to force you to do it. I would assume there's got to be power and control reasons, obviously, because that's why they do everything, basically. But it like medically, scientifically, doesn't make sense. Because people with the vaccine can still catch it and spread it. So why not make everyone test? Because if you're unvaccinated getting tested every week, I'd be a whole lot less scared of you than the people who are vaccinated and probably still carrying it. I take that back. I wouldn't be scared at all anyway. You got to live your life. You have to move on and live your life. So it doesn't make sense. They just want to intimidate them because people, when they do that test, they shove it up your nose, and it can get expensive, and the job's not going to continuously pay for that. So there's that. It doesn't make, they don't care about natural immunity. They don't care about people who've recovered and have antibodies. There's no consideration for that. And they don't care about any religious exemptions. They say they do, but like a friend of mine that I follow, like on TikTok and stuff, Maine's not like allowing, like the state of Maine, they're like not allowing like medical exemptions. I mean, religious exemptions really. So she can't use a religious exemption. They're not going to accept her medical exemptions or grant her one, even though she's had all kinds of serious issues. It's a risk for her to take it. It is just a risk for her. Now, she catches COVID and she has a bad reaction, she's at risk too. But she's very concerned with the vaccine, and they do not care. Yet they will not assume liability. Don't you think that's the craziest thing, though? All these people, and I'm not making the case that it's not safe, but it's crazy that they want to force you to take it. All these people want to force you to take it, your job, you know, whether you work at the hospital, whether you work at a shoe store, like a restaurant, they want to force you to take it. They want to force you to take it if you go to different schools, which I did hear. I was listening to Tucker the other night when I was in the car, and there is someone taking a case for MSU, someone going to MSU. So Godspeed to them. But they're not giving any consideration to religious exemptions or anything. They are really strong-arming people. And for what evil purpose? Is it just merely experiment to see how far we are willing to bend over? Or is it more heinous than that? Is it more heinous than that? So Joe Biden says something bonkers to me. Bonkers. He said that to get back to normal life, we're going to need like 98% of people to get vaccinated.
How many Americans need to be vaccinated for us to go back to normal? Like, what is the percentage of total vaccinations that have to be deployed?
Well, I think we get the vast majority, like is going on in some industries and some schools, 97, 98%. I think we're awful close. But I'm not the scientist. I think, but one thing for certain, a quarter of the country can't go unvaccinated, and us not continue to have a problem.
So he said, to clarify, he said in certain industries, which industries he said, you know, schools and other stuff like that, but 98%, that is astronomically high, but I guess they can get it if they fire everyone who doesn't comply. I guess you can get it. And then they'll brag. There was like one of the major airlines was like, oh, majority of our people got vaccinated. Yay. Well, yeah, because you threaten people. Of course. People are like, yay, force works. Look how well these mandates are working. Whether they're working versus whether they are moral, correct, legal, those are like different questions. But people being so excited about this at the same time, guys, I'm arguing with people all the time about bodily autonomy. When it comes to the abortion issue on TikTok, before I started, I was like in an argument with someone, and I thought this person that was starting to argue with was pretty rational, because before I was arguing with someone who, I asked them, do you accept any limitations on abortion? And they said no. And so I did like a 3-minute video. That's as long as you can get on TikTok. And I said, see, people like this is like the reason why people can't get anywhere with pro-life, with conversations about abortion, because people will name like worst case scenario. They talk about the woman being in danger and etc. When the truth is that they don't want any sort of limitations. And if you don't want any limitations, you're not just like standing up for that abused girl. You're actually using her to excuse the person who wants to use it as birth control, or the person who would rather have a Grammy or an Oscar. If you're going to say no limitations whatsoever. So I pointed out in that video and many other that my contention is that a life starts at conception. That's biology. That's not really up for debate. And if life starts at conception, then why doesn't the inalienable right to life start then when it is alive? And so someone replied and said, well, they believe that the universal human rights says that your life starts when you are born. And I replied and I said, I don't really care what the universal human rights law is or what it says. Like, that's not our Constitution. Our God-given rights, etc. So I start going on about that, and they're like, we're under the UN. I'm like, we're not under the UN. If the UN told us to give up our guns, we wouldn't give up our guns because the UN said so. Because France and Saudi Arabia or whoever is like, what, we wouldn't care. We're still the U.S. We still have our Constitution. Like, so why would I care? Like, people say healthcare is a universal human right. It's not a right. It's not a constitutional right. You and Bernie Sanders can go ham all you want. It's still a commodity. Because if you think you're entitled to someone else's labor, that's slavery. We're against that. We had a whole thing about it. We had a whole thing in America. A whole thing. Yeah, so I said I don't really care about what people dictate as human rights. You have to make your argument based on the Constitution. So they don't like that, and so again, I start off the show saying people are mad at me again. This is a topic I've been talking about a lot lately, and I guess I'm not going to stop anytime soon, because I guess it's newsworthy and it's recent, especially with the Texas heartbeat bill and Biden and the Democrats trying to basically. They passed an abortion bill through the House to defend women's rights and so on. But no one's really still making a good case why the children don't deserve a right to life. But anyway, she said they mentioned bodily autonomy with the abortion industry or issue. And I say it's not, guys, if you're ever arguing about this, just remember, abortion has nothing to do with bodily autonomy. Because bodily autonomy is you making decisions for your life and your future and so on. Abortion, the purpose of abortion is to kill the child inside of you and to get it out. That is not bodily autonomy. Everyone who says that is incorrect. My body, my choice, obviously incorrect. It's all incorrect. Everything they have is propaganda with this issue. So they didn't like that. But it's amazing to me because the original person I was talking about that I was arguing with believes that that the vaccine mandates are okay. But she believes the Texas law is overreach. I don't know what to do with these people other than trying to continuously educate and bring up my point. But it's hard out here in these streets sometimes. So Biden said he thinks that people are going to have to be 97, 98% vaccinated. And I guess you can get there with the people working if you fire everyone who does not comply. And that really looks like where we're headed right now. And in New York, the new governor, who in a lot of respects seems to be worse than the last one. So people are all excited to get rid of Andrew Cuomo, which he should have been rid of or whatever, but this lady's not better. And people are like, oh, we got a woman. Like, women are evil too. Women can be evil too. Sometimes worse. So she said she's not accepting. They're ready to fire people, replace them with overseas workers, National Guard, whatever they have to do. But they're going to get rid of people, and they care about the shortage of staff, because obviously that's going to hurt people in the long run, but they're willing to do it.
My default position is to ask people, please do this. This is why. It's been proven to be safe. The vaccine's been out there a long time now. There are not legitimate religious exemptions because the leaders of all the organized religions have said there's no legitimate reason, and we're going to win that in court in a matter of days. And so this is so unnecessary. And I just want to appeal to the individuals to know that, your coworkers want you to do this. Don't make the burden heavier on them as well.
So I got a question. How do you determine if someone has a sincerely, I mean, I guess you can figure it out depending on what denomination and stuff about someone's sincerely religious held belief. But you kind of have to observe that. Like, you can know a tree by its fruits, but you have to observe the person. You can't just look at them and judge them and say, like if someone says, I believe that, in going to church and stuff, but they never go, maybe that's not a sincerely held belief for themselves. But that doesn't mean that they still wouldn't support it for everyone else, I guess. But is it sincere to them, or is it something that they're actually practicing? I guess not. But you have to observe that. So just looking at people and saying, it's safe, and there's religious leaders who say that it's safe, and that's that. According to which leaders? I'm not Catholic. I don't care what the Pope says. I'm not Catholic. I don't adhere to that. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Catholics, but that's like you're trying to have a level of authority that not everyone's going to care about. I'm also not Baptist. Like, if you bring up like the bishop so-and-so from whatever denomination, that's not who I'm under. That's not who taught me. That's not, not that if they're teaching biblically accurate things, whole respect to that, absolutely. But if someone just kind of gives their opinion on something and I don't find it rooted in the word, then what do I care? So what the religious leaders that she's bringing up, what does that mean to me? Did you talk to my pastor? I don't think you did. I don't live in New York, so I guess this isn't quite my problem, but it's my business, because this is just bad for America, period. It's bad for America, period. And you know what? Ben Shapiro actually made like a similar sort of comment early in the pandemic. I was so mad at Ben Shapiro with a lot of stuff. I wouldn't even watch him for a little bit. I wish I don't have the tweets pulled up on here. But when everything first went down, he's like, I love going to synagogue, but I'm not going to go to synagogue because it can endanger people and you don't need to be going to church. And he's like, and this isn't just my opinion. Every major religious leader has said this. And I'm just like, so? I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm like, which religious leaders have you talked to? Because there's plenty of people still going to church, believing in still going to church, arguing for going to church. Now that you can believe they're wrong, but don't try to bring that level of authority. So that was weird. And then he like closed it off with, it just seemed like trust me bro energy. And that's so not usually what Ben is supposed to do. It seemed like, how he's all facts, don't care about your feelings. This was all feeling Ben. This was very feelings. He needed a Snickers because he wasn't very Ben Shapiro that day. He wasn't him when he was hungry and afraid. So then he like closed off his tweet with, everyone who thinks that these are going to be like permanent measures, stop that. And everyone who's threatening to make it so, stop that. And I'm paraphrasing, but literally, that's pretty much what the tweet was. And I did a TikTok on it, and that has the screenshots on it. So I would like Ben Shapiro, he has a list of times he was wrong, and I would like that to make the cut. I'm going to make an official pitch to Ben that he updates that, because obviously the people pushing to take that power and to keep us locked down for so long and to keep infringing on our liberties, even much after we have a vaccine that doesn't work as well as they promised we were holding out for. But it works fairly well enough that people who have it should not be afraid as they are. It doesn't make any sense how afraid so many people still are. And once Ben said he got the vaccine, he told people, he would go around trying to convince people to get it. Sometimes he'd win, sometimes he'd lose. But he told his staff, like, I don't care if you wear a mask. I don't care if you're vaccinated. Like, once he got it, like, he kept trying to convince people because he believed in the science of it and stuff. But once he himself was safe, and once his family members were safe, and once it was available out to the public and people could choose to go get it, he's like, this is all on you. You assume the risk whether you take it or you don't take it. And that should be all of our attitudes right now. The force doesn't make sense. The force doesn't make sense. But I do want Ben to update that list because obviously, and we're conservatives. We preach about the slippery slope all the time. That's our thing. We always talk about the slippery slope. These people have went skiing, have gone skiing all over our rights. So I'm going to play something else for Ms. Hokum. Now, this is the creepy thing. This is where we get into super creepy territory.
We have to get this community back. And what we went through this pandemic made us stronger. I believe that, especially when I talk to young people who weren't able to have their graduations from high school or a normal life for the last 18 months. I say to them, whatever comes your way in life, you are stronger. You are more resilient. God let you survive this pandemic because he wants you to do great things someday. He let you live through this when so many other people did not. And that is also your responsibility. But how do we keep more people alive? We are not through this pandemic. I wished we were, but I prayed a lot to God during this time. And you know what? God did answer our prayers. He made the smartest men and women, the scientists, the doctors, the researchers. He made them come up with a vaccine. That is from God to us. And we must say, thank you, God. Thank you. And I wear my vaccinated necklace all the time to say, I'm vaccinated. All of you. Yes, I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones, but you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know this. You know who they are. I need you to be my apostles. I need you to go out and talk about it and say, we owe this to each other. We love each other. Jesus taught us to love one another. And how do you show that love? But to care about each other enough to say, please get vaccinated because I love you. I want you to live. I want our kids to be safe when they're in schools. I want you to be safe when you go to a doctor's office or to a hospital and are treated by somebody. You don't want to get the virus from them. You're already sick or you wouldn't be there. We have to solve this, my friends. I need every one of you. I need you to let them know that this is how we can fight this pandemic, come back to normal, and then start talking about the real issues that we have to. Fighting systemic racial injustice, which exists today. And if there's a denier, I will take you on any day because I've seen it. I know it exists. And we are not going to have a blind eye to this ever again any longer under my watch. And that is my commitment to you.
Oh, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. It's so insane. It's so crazy. She says, I need you to be my apostles. You guys are the smart ones. You're the smart ones. And we need to get this COVID situation under control so we can worry about systemic racism. Even though these policies in New York City and mandating this stuff is getting a lot of black people fired and now they can't enter into buildings and go to school, meet teachers and all this other kind of stuff. These mandates are racial injustice. But she wants to fight systemic racism. We got to get the COVID under control. We got to fire all these Negroes so we can help them and fight systemic racism. This is insane. This is insane. Oh, and she's said all that in the church. Say, I need you to be my apostles. You guys are the smart ones. God let you live through this. Other people didn't survive, but you lived. So you could tell your neighbor. So you could tell your neighbor to get vaccinated. Because that's how you show the love of God. By getting vaccinated. What about the ones that include fetal cell lines? Is that showing the love of God? God bless the smart people to make the vaccine. I was arguing with someone back and forth. I had a TikTok that I did. They got some good traction, but it was like there's this trend where there's this music. It has this big horn that it'll blow, and you'll say something, and then it'll be like something kind of not true when the horn blows with the music. So it's like, I'm vaccinated by the blood of Jesus. I mask up with the full armor of God. I social distance from Satan. And so a lot of people thought that was funny. Most people just took it as a joke. Kind of a joke. On my part, it's kind of a joke. But so many people were like, oh my gosh, as a Christian, how could you blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not how you show the love of Christ. Do you know that even, like, I don't know, means? Like, what? It's not spreading the gospel, it's a vaccine. And then they were like, well, God gave us scientists. I'm like, Germany had scientists? Americans had scientists when they decided to do the Tuskegee experiments not too long ago on our soil to black people. Just because you're smart don't mean you're godly. And just because you're doing stuff and getting away with it don't mean that God approves. So her getting up and saying all that creepy stuff in the church about how she needs everybody to be her apostle, and she just wears her I'm vaccinated necklace. Freaking creepy, dude. It's really creepy. It's extraordinarily creepy. And it's amazing how they can just, what do these people who push abortion to no end care about religion? What do they care? They don't care about how God values a child in the womb, how he knits them together with a purpose, how he knows them, how the Holy Spirit reacted before the foundation of the world. He called you, chose you, etc. They don't care about those things. But they say, well, God, love your neighbor. You love them by preaching the gospel. And the gospel is sometimes tough. It's not always lovey-dovey. It's not. And there's a lot of things in there I'm sure she wouldn't even want to be legal to preach, because these people are tyrannical. But this same person who got up in that church and was like, God has you here for a reason, she wants to tell people that you can't have religious exemptions because it's not sincerely held beliefs, because some religious leaders that she talked to said that you should go ahead and take it. What? How do you get to dictate that? How do you get to dictate that? You're the governor. How do you get to dictate that? How does the government get to dictate that? When we have the freedom of religion. But the state gets to determine whether you have a sincerely religious held belief. What religion? What all leaders did you talk to from across what spectrums of what religion? Because I doubt she's an expert. Here's something else crazy from her.
And we'll be nation leading with our mandate, which strikes at midnight tonight, when everyone is expected in a hospital in the state of New York or a healthcare facility to have been vaccinated. I will be signing an executive order to give me the emergency powers necessary to address the shortages where they occur. And that's going to allow me to deploy the National Guard, who are medically trained, deploy people who've been retired, who may have had a license lapse, bring in people from elsewhere. That is not my first position, though, my friends. My desire is to have the people who've been out there continue to work in their jobs, work in them safely, and to all the other healthcare workers who are vaccinated, they also deserve to know that the people they're working with will not get them sick.
So all these people can lose their jobs. By the way, there's cops leaving. So it was bad enough that cops already had fatigue from hatred built up last year, feeling underappreciated. And now there's cops leaving. There's undercover, I heard a story yesterday, there's undercover cops that are being demoted because sometimes they have to do stings in restaurants. And if they're unvaccinated, they can't enter into the restaurants. So they have to be demoted. Or you could just, I don't know, put them on something else. Or just not care, but I guess they don't want to be like, well, we can't send cops to break the law. I guess I don't know what it's like in the real world, but I just assume like when someone goes deep into undercover, something might happen. And going into a restaurant while unvaccinated just doesn't seem like that big of a deal. if they're trying to, I don't know, stop a drug bust or something like that. I think going into a restaurant unvaccinated, like, to do their job, to stop a drug bust or something along those lines, I just don't think it would be the end of the world. I just don't think it would be the end of the world. Maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But we got a lot of people losing their jobs, and she's talking about bringing in the National Guard. I saw a story that they were talking about bringing in people from overseas to come in and do the work. And for what? So, and they're going to keep saying that we're so overwhelmed. We have no beds. They have beds. They don't have staff. They don't have staff. To the people who are like on the fence or like, I don't want to have to lose my, I have so much sympathy, but I'm just like, when are we going to stand up and say this is crazy and enough is enough? When are we going to do that? That enough is enough when I'm not going to comply? Someone has to do it. And there are people, there was someone I just watched on Fox not too long ago who was a police, I believe he's a police chief who decided to walk off and leave. And people have to make their own decisions, but we got to stand up to this tyranny because they're trying to see how far they can push everyone. The governor of New York just said, I don't believe you have a sincerely religious held belief, because a couple of people that she talked to or whatever agree with her. Probably some politically aligned people. And there's a lot of people who compromise their religious beliefs and will skew the Bible or whatever book it is for their politics. So maybe people she talk to don't have sincerely held religious beliefs. Because any kind of solution, because many solutions would be like supernatural. So I don't even know why people really bring that much into debate anyway, but them trying to use it as a club to get people to comply, it's disgusting. And so, by the way, going back to yesterday's show with the national popular vote, we see the crazy stuff they're willing to do in New York, the sort of crazy people they're willing to elect, how much they're willing to take it for their rights to be trampled. There in California, they kept Gavin Newsom, and yes, I believe they kept him. I'm not saying crazy stuff didn't happen, shenanigans didn't happen, but I believe they voted for that man. It's a blue state. According to the exit polling data, they haven't learned their lesson. And maybe some of them will just escape and leave. Not realizing why it was so bad and why the taxes was so high. Because some of these people just don't have a clue. But why should Michigan surrender our voice to these people? Why? Why should we do that? We shouldn't. We shouldn't. And I said this yesterday, and I'll be saying it for a while, but I will say it again right now. You need to talk to, if you live in Michigan, maybe not even just Michigan, but if you live in Michigan especially, you need to talk to every single person you know who claims to represent you, who is elected. And you need to ask them their position on this topic with the national popular vote. And if they think that the voice of Michiganders, whether they are Republican or Democrat, decide and they should overwhelm our voice, you need to not support that person. Don't support them financially. Don't knock doors for them. You need to find their replacement ASAP. Do not support someone who wants to not represent you. It's crazy. Why should we let the people of New York dictate how we decide to vote in Michigan for our president? We elect, our electoral votes go to whoever wins the popular vote. In Michigan, when Trump won in 2016, he won the popular vote in Michigan. We gave him our electoral votes. I know people, it's controversial for me to say this to some people on the right, but as it stands, Joe Biden got those electoral votes for the same reason. Whether you accept it or not, that's what's on paper. So if you were a Democrat and Trump won the popular vote and Biden won Michigan, wouldn't you be mad if it was surrendered to Trump? People with principles should know this is a bad thing. People with agendas will want to give it up. We got to fight those people. We have to fight those people. Let's move on a little bit. So they're arguing about the budget. There's this new line. They're saying it will cost this $3.5 trillion bill they're trying to pass. They're saying it's going to cost nothing. $0.
Not about a dollar amount. The dollar amount, as the president said, is zero. This bill will be paid for.
$0 is what Nancy's saying. That's what Biden is saying. They're all marching with those talking points. Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they're not feeling the number. It's a little too high for them. There's bad stuff in the bill, though, so it's not just the number that should alarm people. There's bad stuff in the bill. Bad stuff in the bill. So it's not really 3.5 trillion. There's people who think that it's actually going to be closer around 5 trillion, 5.5 trillion. And no, these things don't pay for themselves. Those are always quite lies when they say that kind of stuff. We've already spent so much money on different relief packages. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Biden went around, they all went campaigning, and Schumer and Warnock and Ossoff, like they went around saying vote Democrat for Senate and we'll get you another $600 like instantly. And they didn't end up giving, because they said $2,000 is what people were going to get, and they got the $1,200 like altogether or something. I can't quite remember. And they got you, but they didn't give the full amount that they said that they would. And they're like, well, Trump already gave you $600, or already gave you. That was a down payment. I'm like, how was there a down payment? That was a whole different president. That was an entirely different president. How did Trump get a down payment on a promise Joe Biden made? That's crazy. And what's puzzling about it is they spent so much other money. I don't understand why the lie. But I guess they can do the lie and not fulfill the promise because people let them get away with it. Maybe I need to start a campaign, a viral campaign, like you still owe me $600. Not that I think the government should keep giving people money. I just want people to be reminded to be mad about it. Because to me, it doesn't make any sense. They already spent so much money on other stuff, but they said, you citizens, you can't get that $600 though. Because we already paid. See, we just gave the rest about the down payment that Trump did. I'm like, what? You did not coordinate with Trump and he said this is going to be the down payment for when my replacement comes in. No, that did not happen. That did not happen. So So they really think that it's going to be, there's an opinion in Wall Street Journal that it was really going to be closer to 5.5 trillion. So the crazy thing, how they list all these new sort of programs and they're supposed to sunset off. But when you have any sort of social programs, when you're like increasing child tax credits going from like 3,000 to 3,600, people, when those things are supposed to sunset off and go off, no, they start campaigning like, we got to do something. We got to renew this. Republicans are raising taxes on the middle class. Once you start putting in these social programs and spending money on people don't want that money to go. People don't want that money to just run out. And then they campaign a particular way. And then you get enough Republicans who are like scared of the media and whatever. And then they buckle and they keep putting the stuff in. That's what happens. So there's other things that's in the bill that makes it it's a sleight of hand. It's a sleight of hand. But there's something that the Daily Mail was reporting Biden includes in plan to be able to fine companies that don't mandate vaccines up to $700,000 in its $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. A vaccine enforcement mechanism has been included as part of the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better bill. Build Back Better bill. It's so lame that they basically just repurpose Make America Great Again, or Trump had also had like a Build America, Buy America, something like to that degree, and Biden just like repurposed it and you just made it, but in a lame sort of way. Oh boy, and he just got away with campaigning in his basement. Just makes me sick. But which allows the tenfold increases in fines for employers. The increased fines on employers could run as high as $70,000 for serious infractions and $700,000 for willful or repeated violations. The vaccine mandate applies to businesses with 100 or more employees. The fines could be applied per incident, meaning that only a small number of incidents could quickly bankrupt a company. The bill has been passed by the House Budget Committee and has been sent to the House floor for further debate and amendments. This thing needs to die. This thing needs to die. Biden needs to not ever need to pass anything. And you know what? Republicans, what is up with Republicans? Don't pass not a darn thing that this man wants to do. After that, like, Afghanistan debacle, like, this man is incompetent. Some of his choices that he's assembled to work in his cabinet were horrendous. They didn't want to answer very valid questions that were very relevant to how they're going to do their job. Like, sometimes Democrats will ask like dumb questions like that had no relevance or bearing to anything. Like when they would ask Pompeo about his religious beliefs, when they were trying to confirm him, and he's like, I've worked in the department for years and no one's like said anything. I've had any incidents. Yes, I'm a Christian, but obviously they were like, you're a Christian, you must be you must hate the gays. Like that's how they would question them. Like, Democrats really make it about a character issue. And Biden is the one who like started out with like Border King. Cause before, like, if you have a good candidate, they meet the qualifications, you vote them through. And then it just got nasty. Then it got nasty. So, but there were questions that they wouldn't answer that were alarming, and I've, as confirmation hearings were happening, I would share it on here, and then I would do different articles on it and so on. But why I don't understand why they keep voting anything. As long as this man won't play ball, he doesn't believe in. He worked in the Senate for so long, 47 years. He's been in government. And he knows how it works, but he doesn't believe in any sort of, he's just a tyrant. It's his way or the highway. They'll blatantly do things that they know will get struck down in the courts. And when the courts strike it down, they'll say, aha, we are being ruled by the tyrannical conservative majority. That is why President Biden needs to expand the courts and then pack the courts. And then they'll change the meaning of packing, say, well, Republicans pack the courts by filling spots with conservatives. That's not what court packing is. But they'll change their wording because they know it's a language game. But this bill needs to die. This bill needs to die. So here's another thing. Why 100 employees? Why? Is there some kind of magic between the 99 and the 100? Why? Doesn't make any sense. Some companies, Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, and them, they said like, hey, we will fight this legally. And Jeremy Boring, Ben Shapiro, they're big vaccinated, pro-vax people. They get on their show, talk about, Jeremy doesn't have a show, but, Ben gets on and is like, hey, you should take it, etc. But they're like, this is too far. We will fight this legally. We have more than 100 employees, which I didn't realize they had, I guess, more than 100. But they're like, we're not doing this. We're going to fight you legally. And people who can fight legally, they should. They should take up arms and do what they can. Not like, literal, at this point anyway. But I mean, like, go ahead and be in the fight in the way that you can. But if you're a small business and you get fined $70,000 a few times, or 700,000 a few times, or even once, they could just really wipe you out. You could go out of business. And this is at a time after we had an artificial depression because the government made people shut down their businesses because they got to pick winners and losers and determine who was essential and who wasn't essential. So big corporations, they don't mind enforcing this stuff. And even if they didn't, they can take, like Amazon or something, for example, could take the fines if something happened. But most of these big companies are going to comply because they just really want to strangle their competition and become the only entities left. So if they got to play ball with the government a little bit, they'll do that. But whatever they have to do to become the last person standing. Like companies like Walmart and stuff, they don't mind when people lobby for like $15 an hour because they're a big company and they can afford it, but they know your mom and pop shop can't. So it would be nice if some of these big corporations would stand up to some of this. But some of them won't. most of them probably won't. So the little guys have to stick, but I know it's going to be scary, especially with those fines. We need some civil disobedience. As Rand Paul talked about, we need some civil disobedience here. Back in the days of the earlier lockdowns in Michigan, sometime last year, there's a big restaurant company wrote like an opinion piece, and I think I know the name of it, but I don't want to be wrong, so I'm not going to name. Well, it might have been Andiamo's, but I'm not sure. Or the chain that owns them or whatever, but spoke out and said, hey, we need to stand up against this stuff. And then people knew they were right, but there were smaller businesses that are just like, or smaller restaurants that are like, we can't afford what you guys can afford to just stand up to the governor like this. So they kept complying. But people didn't stand up then. And now we have these mandates here. So they kept pushing people to see how far they would go. And now they know, and they're going to see how much farther they can keep pushing. And they're saying we have a $3.5 trillion bill that we're trying to pass. It's going to be $0, which is a lie. They know it's a lie, yet they say it anyway. And people will keep repeating it. All their sycophants will say it. They'll keep repeating it, knowing good and well it's going to cost more than that. Knowing good and well the things they put limitations on will have to keep continuing. They don't have to, but they know how politics work. They understand the game. So they know it's not going to be $0. And they put it in there that they're going to fine you. They put it in the bill that they're going to fine you up to $700,000 for repeated breaking of their rules, their bonkers rules. It's incredible. And I don't know how much people need to take before they get up and stand up and say enough is enough. I don't know. This week, not this weekend, very soon, October 15th, 16th, maybe 17th, Motor City Comic Con will be in Michigan. They are making everyone wear masks, unfortunately. I got an alert about that. I'm going to be rebellious in my own way. We'll see. But I'm going to have a table there. So if you're in Michigan and you're going to Motor City Comic Con, please feel free to stop by my booth. And you might be asking why I'm going to have a booth there at Motor City Comic Con. Well, earlier I did announce that I do write books, but I don't only write faith books. I write, which I'll have that book there too if you want that one. But I have 13, I think, books out. And one of them, this is like 2 of them right here in the series. So this is a historical fiction fantasy story that I have. Takes place during the Civil War. It's kind of, think of like, if you've seen Nick Harriet, the movie, and then include like X-Men powers, and that's pretty much, I guess, something of what you would get. So that's like one of my books that I have. I also have stories for kids. Super Kid is like well, is like my kind of staple book that usually does pretty well when I go to Motor City. I haven't been in a couple years. So anyway, you can go to my website and check out what I have. It's ninjadoespublishing.com. At least that's my writing website. Here we go. ninjadoespublishing.com. That's where I have all my books at. If you guys want to check that stuff out, I'm going to have a link there if someone wants to reserve some copies of some books. So when you get up to the table, they will still exist for you. And, I'll set them aside so they don't run out. But you're going to have to, get on it if you plan to go to the Motor City Comic Con. And if not, you can just go to the website and decide to buy them straight off Amazon, or if you want an autographed copy, you can also, there's a link where you can just sign up there, and I'll order them and I'll sign them and then I'll ship them to you. So you have that option as well. But it would be nice if anyone is interested in going to Motor City Comic Con. It's the biggest Comic Con in Michigan. They had to totally get rid of it last year because of COVID restrictions, and so they moved it later to this year. So I'll be there. If you are going to be there, please come and see me in Artist Alley, and I will have a big sign that says Ninja Does Publishing and a bunch of books. So come and get your own copy or come and chit chat, but I'd appreciate if you bought something. And please also go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. Make sure that you guys share it. Make sure that you guys are looking at the different merchandise that I have on the site, like the black stuff with the black tea. And we got You Are Not That Special. Got those cute little mugs. Be Better Not Bitter shirt. I love that shirt. I have that myself. The goat hoodies, I have those in different colors. So if you're worried you're going to spill something, I got others, different colors. Denounce white supremacy, defeat Joe Biden with a list of his atrocities on the back. And I've got other stuff. So please make sure that you check out the website, check out the merchandise. And if you would like to support blacktnews.com, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and leave a donation. I've got big plans for Black Teen News. And if you would like to help us get further faster, please consider leaving a donation. Thank you to everyone who watches and shares. Make sure that you are following the Facebook page, that you've liked it, that if you're on YouTube, that you have liked the page or that you subscribed, and yet you hit the notification bell, because YouTube be playing games and you can subscribe, but they won't notify you. So make sure that you get the notification so you know when I'm going live or post something new, which is interesting because they will certainly notify me on channels that I have not subscribed to. So they, like I said, they just be playing games. All my social media handles are at Black Teen News on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm always on TikTok, like every day I post something, several somethings normally. The only one that is different is my Twitter, and that is at True Black Tea, and that's black like the color and tea like the drink. We're sipping tea, spilling the tea. All right, thank you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow.